As I grit my teeth and buy the last box of discounted shrimp, a young woman dressed head to toe in designer brands is speaking out. Imported seafood beside me. She glances at me and casually drops a king crab into my cart. It's the holidays. Treat yourself better, she says, with a carefree smile. I'll pay for everything you buy today. I am shocked when I see the 5-figure price tag. I quickly try to decline her by waving my hands frantically. She pulls out a black card and shrugs. It's fine. My sugar daddy gives me more money than I can spend. If I don't use it, he'll get mad. I force a laugh. Sounds like he's really generous to you. He's alright, I guess. I can't spend money as fast as he earns it, she says nonchalantly. After a slight pause, she goes on. Speaking of which, his girlfriend is pretty dumb. She works non-stop for years just to help him pay off a debt that doesn't even exist. When I say I want him to cook on New Year's Eve, he immediately ditches his girlfriend to come be with me. I freeze for a moment. My boyfriend, Eric Sterling, is in debt. Just as I am thinking, it can't be that much of a coincidence. My phone buzzes with a message from Eric. He texts, Anne, the company assigned me to an extra shift tonight. I get triple the pay. Buy yourself something nice to eat. I'll be home tomorrow. A sharp ringing filled my ears, and the world around me spun into a blur. When I didn't reply, Eric called me. Anne, why aren't you saying anything? He asked gently, as I listened to the familiar indulgence in his voice. I couldn't help but ask, can you come home today? We don't need the money anymore, okay? He paused briefly, then let out a soft chuckle. Do you miss me that much? After we finish paying off the debt, we'll have all the time in the world. Someone called for him in the background, and he quickly hung up. I stared blankly at the $100 he had just sent. Next to me, the young woman let out a helpless sigh. My sugar daddy just transferred another $100,000 and told me to buy something to spice things up. But honestly, nothing here costs that much. I'll get you a few outfits with the rest. Before I could even respond, Susan Winslow had taken my hand, settled a bill at the supermarket, and ushered me into a high-end boutique. As I stared at the string of numbers on the tags, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. After college, Eric's startup had collapsed. He was buried under debt and sank into a deep depression. And I worked multiple jobs every day just to see a spark of life return to his eyes. For 5 long years, I had scrimped and survived on plain bread and water. Yet here I was, wearing clothes that cost over $20,000 each. At the thought, a sour bitter ache rose in my nose. Susan kept babbling beside me. You know, my sugar daddy actually forced his girlfriend to have 3 abortions. Just for me. Something shuddered in my mind. My hand went instinctively to my stomach. I had lost 3 children, too. The first time, I had been rushing a food delivery when a luxury car knocked me sprawling. The second, I had knelt in the pouring rain for 2 hours, crying at a stranger's funeral just to earn $70. The third, Eric had wept, telling me we couldn't afford a child, and led me to a small clinic to get the pills. On countless nights, he would wake from nightmares, catching me as he whispered apologies. He used to say, Anne, when I make a comeback, I'll give you a stable home. Suzanne didn't notice my face growing pale and continued, That foolish woman didn't even know what to say when she realized she had crashed into a luxury car. Susan said, "My sugar daddy was in the back seat the whole time, watching me leave. And that funeral gig, it should have paid $700. But he had someone force it down to just $70. As I took in the smug look on her face, I asked, "Doesn't it bother you that he has a girlfriend?" Susan gave me a strange look. "His love, his money, everything he gives is mine. And aside from the title of girlfriend, what does a woman even have?" I didn't remember how I made it home. The cramped 100-square-foot rental had once been something Eric and I built together with care. Back then, Eric has sworn it would be just the two of us forever. In that carefully woven lie, I lived happily for years, forgetting how difficult life had been. Perhaps it was fate that I stumbled upon Susan's account. She was in the middle of a live stream. The camera was pointed at Eric, whom I would have recognized even if I were reduced to ashes. Eric pulled off the threadbare t-shirt he had worn for years and changed into a silk lamb set. The comments flooded in. "Is a gentle, wealthy, loyal man like this even real? He looks so caring, and he even knows how to cook. Don't you know? Sue has stomach issues, so Eric actually learned special recipes from my chef to make meals that are easy on her." The endless stream of comments cut into me like a dagger. For 5 years, I was so busy helping Eric clear his debts that I never had a proper meal. Outside, fireworks cracked through the sky as people counted down. I watched as Eric set the knife down and slowly stepped toward the camera. A second later, the screen went black, and the sound of a heated kiss rang out. Susan abruptly ended the live stream, but not before leaving a caption for her followers. "If my sugar daddy wants it, it's his." In the picture, Eric's strong, well-defined hand gripped Susan's waist with unmistakable dominance. Outside, the city sparkled with light and celebration. I found myself scrolling through Susan's posts, even though I knew I shouldn't, amid her flaunting. The missing pieces began to come together. On the very day Eric gave me a pair of cheap crystal hair clips, he had just spent millions of dollars on a diamond necklace for Susan, when he marked paying off half his debt with a single cup of coffee. He still made sure to send her money for the designer bag she wanted. Whenever I needed him or worried myself sick over him, he was at the villa he gave Susan, chasing the thrill of their affair. Even the small charm I had once prayed over for his safety now dangled from his lover's bag. My hands and feet turned ice cold as I curled up on the wooden bed. Eric returned 3 days later. He had already changed the bag in two, his usual worn-out clothes, and wrapped me in a familiar, warm embrace. My stomach churned violently. I pushed him away and vomited until everything spun. The happiness on his face shattered, giving way to panic. His eyes reddened, and tears streamed down his face. What's wrong? Don't scare me. There was nothing left in my stomach. Only sour bile came up in the end. He frowned in concern. Did you skip meals again? Old co-worker gave me some extra work, so I was delayed. How did you get like this? As I listened to his effortless lies, I felt an urge to laugh. But as I did, even the man in front of me blowed out of focus. I was sick, running a high fever of 102 degrees. In my daze, my thoughts were filled with fragments of Eric from the moment we started dating. He had done everything to make me feel safe. His profile pictures across all his social media accounts were of me. Because I had chronic sinus issues, he had quit his 10-year habit of smoking. He remembered every little thing about me, even my period cycle. How could someone like Eric, who instinctively protected me even during an earthquake, ever cheat? Why would he cheat? My body burned and then chilled, and I could feel him bustling around me. He swabbed the towel on my forehead every half hour and wiped my lips with a cotton. Swab every 15 minutes. When I opened my eyes, he looked just like he always did whenever I was sick. His eyes were red and full of concern. I weakly lifted my hand and touched his cheek, realizing for the first time how distant he felt. "Anne, you're finally awake. I was so worried about you. I made some pumpkin soup. Sit up and let me feed you a little," he said. My eyes brimmed with tears as I struggled to get the words out. I forced it down and smiled weakly. "It's good." Hearing my reply, Eric smiled. His eyes shone the same way they had when I met him at 18. As my eyes fell on the bandages on his hands, I softened again. 5 years of love weren't easy to walk away from. He held me close, quietly murmuring about how terrified he had been these past 3 days. I didn't comfort him this time. I only whispered, "How much debt do we still have?" Eric blinked in confusion and answered casually, "A lot." As the question came to me, I asked, "Eric, aren't you tired?" He smiled as he tucked the blanket around me. "No, I've been sick and taking medicine all these years, but I've never done any hard work. It's you who barely gets any rest each day." For a fleeting moment, I almost asked him why he spent each day living a lie, pretending to be poor, despite his family's vast wealth. However, I couldn't bring myself to say it. I realized with a jolt that I didn't even have the courage to face the unbearable truth. "And I haven't gone to work these past few days while you were sick. My boss isn't too happy about it. Tomorrow, stay home and rest. I'll be back after work." When Eric said this, his fingers were still on the WhatsApp screen. I gripped the blanket and anxiously asked, "Can you stay with me a few more days?" He tilted his head and looked at me silently. Finally, he whispered, "Okay." Once I settled, my thoughts cleared. Everything I hadn't wanted to dwell on rushed in. For years, I had been up before sunrise and back late at night. Eric worked overtime night after night. When I added it all up, the time we actually spent together was shockingly little. Eric held me close, kissing from behind my ear down to my neck. But the cracks in my heart could no longer be filled. I thought frantically of the innocent, lively woman he had been caring for. Did he hold her like this? Did he show her the same tenderness? A wave of nausea hit me, and I threw up. Eric didn't notice anything unusual. He simply fussed over me with concern. If he cared for me so much, why had he been intimate with another woman? Through the fog of fever, I heard him mutter, "She's sick. Be good. I'll see you in a couple of days." When he saw me sit up, he jumped slightly. He instinctively hid his phone and asked, "Did I wake you?" Something came up at work. On the table sat the candle Eric and I had bought to save electricity. Its weak flame flickered as cold air slipped through the door crack. I lowered my eyes. "Eric, let's get married." In my memory, he had always said those words to me first. When I finally said them, his first reaction was panic. He forced a smile. "Anne, what's going on?" I didn't answer. The clock hands cut through the silence like nails. Time dragged on, and his eyes held a complexity I couldn't read. After a long moment, he let out a sigh. "All right. Once you're better, we'll talk about marriage. Don't overthink it. I'm just afraid I can't give you the life you deserve." Minutes later, he seemed like a completely different person. In the days, I glimpsed the boy who had once shared his hopes for the future with me. I nodded, but the joy I expected never came. Something dark weighed on my chest, refusing to lift. "Eric, this is your last chance," I thought, but he still walked away. The woman's miserable sobs echoed, and Eric flustered so badly that he forgot to lower the volume on his phone. He put on his coat and stepped outside. "Don't be afraid. Lock the door. I'll be there soon," he said gently. The old wooden door creaked, then everything went quiet. I found myself tapping on Sue's channel labeled Sue's Love Diary. As I expected, there was a new post. "You can play sick all you want, but sorry, you just ran straight into my line of fire." Minutes later, a short video followed. The screen was dark, but I could hear Eric's restrained voice clearly. "Little liar, do you know how worried I was when I heard you broke your leg?" Susan's sweet, teasing laugh followed. "I reckon, are you really going to leave?" Then came the sounds of running water from the bathroom, mixed with thoughts and gasps. I lost count of how many times I replayed that 1-minute video. By the time dawn broke, Eric finally remembered me and sent me a message. "Anne, a coworker had an emergency. I need to help him for a few days." I called him, and he picked up instantly. I asked, "Are you really with your coworker?" He let out a chuckle. "Sorry, Anne, I left in a hurry. I didn't mean to make you worry." I asked one last time, "Where are you really?" He repeated the same excuse. I hung up, and he never called again. Around the same time, Sue's Love Diary posted an update. My sugar daddy was relentless. He didn't stop all night, and even a ringing phone couldn't break his focus. If this had happened before, I would have lost my mind. I would have barged in, demanded answers, thrown things, and screamed at Eric for an explanation. But for some reason, I was completely exhausted. As I packed my belongings, I threw away every object that held memories. I had expected 5 years to leave me with countless things, but not a single box was full. I spent the last of my money on a random flight to an unknown destination. While waiting at the airport, I made my private account, where I had chronicled my life, public. It had begun as a space for simple daily love notes. But now it was over, and nothing would ever be the same. I didn't say a single word, and only tagged Sue's Love Diary in my post. "Eric, is loving someone is this hard? Then from today on, we will never see each other again."